All right, the story that everybody's talked about, Brittany Griner being released from a Russian prison, and it was a prisoner swap. Some people are making a lot to do about it. Was it a fair swap? Does it make America look weak? Did her sexuality have anything to do about it? We'll get it all into it. I'm digital anchor Andre Ash from Real Times Media. Joining me right now, my colleagues from all of our different bureaus. We have Roz Edward. She is the managing editor of Atlanta Daily World and Atlanta Tribune, and over programming for our Atlanta bureau and our Chicago bureau as well. Adele Henderson joins us. Good day. Let's get into it. Brittany Griner, thank goodness she is back home after months in prison. This was a prisoner swap that the Biden administration worked. Roz, what is the latest in what we are learning? What are you hearing?
Well, I understand that the prisoner swap, while they were hoping the Whelan family and the Griner family, along with the State Department, was hoping for a 2-for-1 swap where they would get Paul Whelan, who's been detained since 2018. Paul Whelan apparently is in a different category of prisoner in the Russian prison system, so he was not eligible for the swap. What's interesting, though, Andre, is that the prisoner that they did swap Brittany Griner for is a very high-profile arms trader here in the U.S. And as a matter of fact, his nickname is the Merchant of Death. So to have a basketball celebrity traded for a pretty deadly agent, I think is kind of interesting that they would go that would be the most palatable and reasonable swap that they came up with.
The scale is pretty interesting because some would say, well, how do you compare the two? How could this really be a fair trade? What the laws are in other countries when you go outside of the United States. And I think that's an important conversation to have as well. And we'll get into that in just a moment. But I know that you look across social media and people say, well, you know, we should just be glad that she's back home and forget all the geopolitics that's involved in it. What are you hearing, Adele?
Man, it's been obviously, you know, a hot topic that's been going on for quite some time, ever since, you know, Brittany was detained. There's been a lot of comparisons like, man, you know, if they had LeBron James, it wouldn't have taken this long for us to get her back. And I do feel as if, you know, just based on, you know, there, you know, being such a magnifying glass on Brittany being detained, the fact that it is Russia, it put, you know, the Biden administration in a situation to where it's like, man, we need you to do something, right? So it's just been real interesting. We are happy to have her home, but it still doesn't feel as if it has been a big win. You know, probably I'm pretty sure the Biden administration isn't feeling as if, you know, the reception is what they would have liked for it to have been, because there's still people, you know, who are sort of still dragging Joe Biden. You know, the NBA, there's so many different people. It's one of those things, man, with social media as a whole, you can't really pay attention to the noise. At the end of the day, Brittany's home. That's what we wanted to happen. And hopefully it'll be before the Lifetime movie, before we really get the specifics on what really happened with this exchange.
Well, look, you talk about a Lifetime movie. When I was watching the footage that Russia released on the prisoner swap on the airport tarmac, it looked like a scene from a movie, right? But I think it also brings to light on what were some of the factors that led her to be playing outside of the country anyway, outside of the WNBA. Will this now bring attention to the pay gap or disparity between what female basketball players make here in the United States versus what they're paid outside of the WNBA or outside of this country? The fact that she had to even play in Russia in the first place, as far as the pay gap, it will perhaps bring attention to that. What do you think, Roz?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, Andre. There's a couple of things. This has been going on for years with the WNBA, that players in the WNBA, and as high profile as they are here, the inequities in pay between the male and female players are phenomenal. And I understand that players going to Brittany Griner's case and WNBA players, that they probably earn about 3 times as much in Russia. And I'm thinking it's really interesting that with the political climate being what it was, that Brittany chose to make that trip anyway. So I'm saying that my thinking is that the impact on the women that play in the WNBA is so strong that she would take that risk, understanding that there were the political climate, that there are some issues that exist between our two countries that made her a target, and she decided to go anyway.
But Andre, let me add, you know, in all fairness, it does suck that, you know, our women do have to go over there, but, you know, we do have a lot of our men who don't, you know, make it to the NBA. You know, they make their way over there and play ball, whether it's basketball, football, something that's extremely common. But to all unfairness, yeah, there's like the pay gap is ridiculously different. It's like the average NBA player, you know, is making $5.3 million a year in salary, when the WNBA players, they're making around $130,000. You know, so that's NBA players making 41 times on average the amount of money, 41 times more, you know, than, you know, women are making in the WNBA. So of course, you know, there's a situation to where, you know, these young ladies, they need to make a living, you know, so they're going to go and look for these different opportunities. And sometimes, you know, that, you know, puts them in harm's way.
I mean, when you go back to the politics of this, it seems as if the Biden administration is almost, for them, damn if I do, damn if I don't. It was almost a no winning situation for them in the beginning, because you had the White House speaking, saying that, look, the deal that was presented before us against a dictator regime like Russia, is you either get Brittany or you get nothing. I don't know how we negotiated this deal as far as having some type of leverage over Russia, if we have any leverage over them at all. But there is no doubt that Brittany Griner was used as a political pawn.
I don't think there's any doubt, Andre, that being a Black gay celebrity played a big part in Brittany Griner's detention and also in her release. And in some ways may have been a factor in how diligently the State Department worked for that release. She was a high-profile target going in, especially as a target or someone that was appealing to the Russian government for being a political detainee. So with the attitude and the laws in Russia about homosexuality and being gay, while it's not against the law to be gay in Russia or in a gay relationship, same-sex marriages are illegal. So with her being married, I think it added more fodder to their intention to detain her. LGBT rights groups talk about the homophobic attacks that have been rocketed since President Putin has taken over. I think they've gone up about 175% for people being detained and imprisoned for being homosexual relationships.
Whether or not, you know, we come across as being weak, because the reality is there's been a lot of, you know, pressure on this administration to do something. This is something that was not going to go away. I mean, you got to think about it. When it came to, you know, George Floyd in 2020, even before, you know, the NBA started to make a lot of noise, the WNBA was very vocal. The WNBA has had a history as being extremely vocal when it comes to, you know, taking a stance and, you know, being very outspoken. And, you know, they were not going to let this go away. And so with that being said, you know, us being in this space now to where, you know, we're sort of attempting to force the hands of people in power to be a lot more politically correct, something had to happen. Right? Something had to happen. You know, there had to be some sort of way to bring Brittany home, you know, and not allow her to serve these 9 years, which she was sentenced.
Well, I think the good news is that Brittany Griner is back home with her family days before Christmas, and we're hoping the best. And we'll have to watch the story as it develops. We know that Brittany Griner has now landed on U.S. soil, so that is good news. Thank you, colleagues, for joining us for this special conversation. We'll see you next time. For Stories Anytime, head to our platforms of Real Times Media.